Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Brief Nerdy Podcast. I will be your host once again this week. My name is Ryan. Joining me once again is my good friend Trent.
Hello.
And once again, Alan.
Hi, how are you?
Not really Alan, it's Nick. Awesome
Nick.
Alan from the Game Rants.
Alan, Nick, whatever anyone prefers.
We're just so confused after last time.
Yeah, so how are you guys?
Great. Should we tell them the exciting news
Well, for one thing,
about how this is being recorded?
yeah, we're all recording in the same room. We are remote, Trent and I, out in Orlando. Orlando, yep. Now we're getting a copyright strike just for that. But no, we actually, Trent and I flew out to Orlando this week to attend Star Wars Celebration. So this week's episode of the podcast is going to be exclusively tied to Star Wars Celebration. We're actually very, very tired. Our flight out is tomorrow, so it's probably going to be a little bit shorter episode than what you guys are used to. Maybe you guys prefer a 45-minute-ish episode, but we will see, right?
We will see. Our two fans that we know of can let us know.
Yep. Hey, we had that fan mail a few weeks ago, and then I met one of our old-time Game Rant fans and current Brief Nerdy fans while at Celebration for the first time, so that was cool. But anyway, let's get on with Celebration. So we went to pretty much all the major panels, yes. I would say. So we're just kind of going chronological order. So we showed up early or Wednesday evening or so to camp out in line.
Yeah, around 9:30-ish p.m.
Yeah, so a little bit later than most people because they open the doors at 8. But yeah, we got there around 9:30 to camp out for the 40th anniversary panel. Trent, why don't you get started on that one a little bit?
The lining up or the panel?
No, lining up. We're telling the full story.
Because the lining up was a little crazy. First off, a quick apology for my voice. We also did Universal Studios and the Harry Potter stuff today. And I have no voice left. After
just a lot of shouting and cheering.
Lots of cheering for the last 7 days. So we got there, got in line. It was kind of a giant cluster the first day. Just a mass of people in a giant convention room heading towards 6 metal detectors and security people that probably could not have averted a security crisis to save their lives. And then we got inside, got in queue. We were like 2,200 this in line.
Now, the room supposedly held about 3,400, but people we knew who were just like one line chunk behind us didn't get in.
Yes. Were you with us the first night, Nick? I can't remember.
I believe I showed up the next night.
Yeah, he wasn't there that night with us.
So the most annoying thing that happened in that night. So we were there to camp out overnight. We were there to get our wristbands at 6 o'clock the next morning. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd been asleep already for an hour.
I was just now trying to fall asleep at that point.
A DJ showed up. And I'm not kidding. And he was like, "Who's ready to make some noise?" And started playing like really annoying music.
You guys ready for some celebration?
And it's like started pounding like dance music and then like really annoying music like Don't Stop Believin' and other stuff. And I was like sitting there staring at the ceiling. And I couldn't believe it was actually happening.
So thankfully it was shut down relatively quickly. I think maybe 30, 45 minutes. They finally got the message that we were trying to sleep.
But then Lightsaber Fight Club started up right afterwards.
Like, a group of people just started like, oh, we're going to start like trying to legit fight with our lightsabers or play legit fight with our lightsabers in a big crowd. So it was like, whack, 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 and lightsabers and just like constantly for like the next few hours. So needless to say, we probably got a total of like 3 hours of sleep
somewhere
that night because they got us up at 5 to condense the line down so they could hand out wristbands.
Not to mention that people kept knocking down the
barricades.
Yeah. So the pole barricades that they set up are super easy to knock down because they're not really connected. They just kind of rest in the pole that they're next to, and so any like bump upwards will knock these things off, and then they hit the ground and they make a clang, and then all the people nearby start cheering. It's the most annoying thing ever. Especially when it happens at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
But skipping ahead to something positive, we eventually were able to get our wristbands the next morning. We were probably like the last 50 to 100 people or so to
really
get
close.
ours because we knew people in the next wrap of the line next to us who didn't get into that stage.
Yep.
So that was lucky for us and really exciting. So we made it into the 40th anniversary panel, which was also the kickoff panel. And
it was phenomenal, right?
Incredible.
In hindsight, it's now the highlight of the entire con, including the Last Jedi panel.
Yeah,
I would say.
I mean, I expected there to be, tribute videos, which there was. I expected there to be a tribute to Carrie Fisher, which there was, which was incredible. I bawled. But the surprise of Harrison Ford, the surprise of George Lucas, and then the surprise of John Williams, just like one after another, just and Hayden Christensen, it just blew me away. And like everything is like, it felt like one of those like infomercials when like, call now, but wait, there's more.
Yeah. I concur completely. There was a few items on my bucket list. One of them being to hear John Williams live. That I pretty much, even though it was on my bucket list, I kind of resigned the fact that it was never going to happen in my life. When am I ever going to have an opportunity to hear John Williams in person? But they were able to bring that to me this past week, and so I was crying. And like you said, I was crying during the Carrie Fisher tribute. And then some other things as well, such as like having George Lucas and Harrison Ford be there. Like George Lucas, most people thought he pretty much washed his hands of all Star Wars after he sold it off.
Yep.
What was that statement he made? Something like, sold his child into slavery or something not super PC that he said about it. Do you remember?
Well, that wasn't actually in reference to selling it to Disney. He was talking about like the idea that when you're a young new filmmaker and you sign with a label, they want to own you.
Oh, he said it like, I'm not talking about the panel. I was talking about like in reference to like around the time episode 7 was coming out. He said
that. I don't know.
He said something like that. So I can't think of it off the top of my head. But in my head, I just didn't think he'd really have anything to do with Disney or Disney's Star Wars from here on out, besides being an honorary member, being invited to premieres and things like that. So him showing up at a Star Wars celebration, was an unexpected surprise. And I was so happy to finally be able to see him in person. And then same thing with Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford has always been known to be very like not anti-Star Wars, but definitely anti-fandom and never wanting to go to any cons of any kind or something like that. And he was at San Diego Comic-Con for The Force Awakens, but that's kind of forced upon him. That's part of his tour and promotion deals.
Right.
So he kind of had to be at San Diego Comic-Con, so that's why I tried to see him back when he was there in 2015, but wasn't able to. But now he shows up here for this. So, I mean, just lots of goodness all around in that panel.
Yeah, and he spoke pretty highly of everything to do with Star Wars. Some of his interviews that I've seen anyway on YouTube, he's kind of a little more flippant about it and makes a lot of jokes. He was very serious, very positive, thanks the fans for everything. He took a couple of jokes about landing his plane on the highway pretty well. I thought that was great. But yeah, just like the Carrie Fisher tribute into her daughter being on stage, and then that flowing into John Williams playing the live Leia's theme there for all of us. It was just incredible. Were you able to watch it after the fact, Nick, or any of the 40th anniversary panel?
I hadn't watched anything other than the John Williams reveal, which I feel was probably the most surprising thing of that entire presentation. And it went on for about 15 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played the Leia theme, and then he played kind of the opening and closing major themes from, I think, episode 4 for the closing piece, and then the Imperial March,
of course,
which was awesome. And that was the Imperial March was the encore, which was great, and everybody went nuts, and it was exciting.
Yeah. One cool thing about that is that we heard the music before we saw him, and we just thought it was a recording, like any normal ballroom in a panel would have. But then the curtains opened to reveal him, and it was a deafening, thunderous applause.
People were going crazy.
But and John Williams turned around and gracefully accepts the applause, but then immediately gestures with his hands to silence the audience, and it went dead silent immediately.
I've never heard a crowd that large get immediately silent. It's like the power of John Williams is like directing hands. He's just like, shush.
You're done. We're going to play some music to tribute Carrie Fisher now.
It was incredible.
So it was very, very good. So that kicked off our Friday, or Thursday, excuse me.
Thursday.
What was the other major panel we went to that day? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I am drawing a blank.
Well, we pretty much went and got in line immediately.
Right.
For it, right? We didn't really spend much time.
I can remember Saturday, and I can remember Sunday. For some reason, I'm having trouble remembering the second panel. Oh, it was the Dave Filoni.
You're right.
Interview about
randomness.
Just a lot of stuff. Him and Pablo Hidalgo from the story group talked about a number of animated characters, where they came from, what they want to do with them, some little teases here and there. It was fun. There weren't really big reveals. There was a lot of teases for the upcoming Rebels panel that was on Saturday. So it was fun. We pretty much went straight from that to lining up again because at that point there was another line that was forming for the following overnight line. Mm-hmm. So we went almost immediately into that one around 2 or 3 o'clock.
I was a little bit later than that.
3 or 4 o'clock.
Because Nick, you showed up around 2 or 3 o'clock, and then we still kind of hung around the convention center and ate some food and stuff like that. So I think it was around 4-ish that we got to that line. But you forgot to mention the cluster that was the line for the Dave Filoni panel.
Oh, yeah. So if you go to the Star Wars Celebration Reddit or follow the Twitter hashtags or anything, you'll probably see a lot of people very angry at ReedPop, who are the people that were in charge of the staffing. So the lineup room for the secondary panels in the main stages was a big room with probably 7 sectioned off lines with an open front.
Lanes.
Yeah, an open front and an open back. So instead of having snaked panels or snaked lines like you should, like a kind of a central feed line and then snaking out to the side, because we had Billy D. Williams on one side and Dave Filoni panel on the other side. He had people, the guy was expecting the entire group of people to walk into the line, get to the end, and then turn around and walk back to the front and in the
same lane.
Yeah, snake within the same lane, and just pretending that everyone's going to do that with no problem. This was further, I can't say the word I want to say, messed up by the fact that, so the first line, so then they ran out of room because there was too many people, and people were just kind of flooding into the front of the room, so they weren't in any lines at all.
Just chilling by the doorway.
Right.
And
so eventually they pressed those people back, and so they became the front of all those other lines, which was really annoying because they showed up last. Then they sent out the first and the second line into the main hallway and then around to the convention center. But then they stopped, and then they started sending the next line through a side door while sending the last line out into the main area, making our line,
which was the third or fourth line,
which should have been in the middle. We ended up being the last ones to leave for the panel.
Yeah.
It was so aggravating.
So because we were one of the last people to get into the room for that initial 40th anniversary panel, and then we were one of the last ones to get into the room for that panel.
Right. Luckily, we have some good seat Manchu-fu-ness, and we ran to the other side, whereas people hadn't been congregating and got some decent seats. But
well, it was in that room that we came with our very first video game idea together, the brief nerdy video game idea project, And
we're staking our claim now, so that we can say this was our idea.
Don't steal it. I'm putting all of our fans on the honor system not to steal our idea. But
that's right.
There's games like SimCity, and probably more applicable is a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon or something like that. But there needs to be a sim con.
Yes.
A game where you could simulate a con, control the lines and have different celebrities appear, but the celebrity canceled, what are you gonna do? And
how to pick the venue for how to pick the food, how to pick the food prices. I mean, because it's not a convention without a $16
hot dog,
tiny plate of Asian food that is the blandest thing you've ever tasted in your life.
Yeah. So
anyway, what were your thoughts on the kind of the lineup for the next day stuff?
That was when
we lined up
I actually
outside.
Showed up for something, right?
Yeah. Yes. So when we were lined up outside on that bridge for a while.
Kind of into that overnight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt the same way as you guys at the time, because it seemed like they could have put a little bit more effort into arranging it in a just a much more efficient manner. the fact that no one really knew where the line was, and we were just unsure where to be, was an issue. And then how we got up on the bridge, and then they moved us later because we were almost stretching out to the hotel over, and that would have been an issue if we just all ended up just kind of in the hotel with the line.
Yep.
So it was a good idea to move us, but at the same time, it's like I wish we could have just been in the hall.
Yeah.
At the very beginning.
So that reminds me of something that a rule that was broken every day, technically, by the staff and the attendees there. So one reason we showed up around 9:30 on the first evening is that they explicitly said that like their doors won't open and we will disperse any lines before 8 p.m. So we think, we'll show up at like around 9-ish. We definitely won't be first in line, but we'll still be able to get in. But then there were people lined up from earlier in the afternoon, and then they ended up honoring that line going in. And so people online were raising a huge stink about it. And so, like I said, around when you showed up, Nick, around 2 p.m. that day, there was already a line forming outside. It was only about 100 people long or so at that point. So we were bustling around the convention center trying to figure out what to do. It's like, do we go line up in that line? But if so, we risk, being stuck outside when the line inside forms, or do we try to get the staff to disperse that line so everyone has a fair chance? So we didn't know quite what to do, but we ended up, like Nick said, getting into the line eventually.
Well, and it took asking 3 or 4 different staff people and eventually the security people, like, are you going to clear the convention hall, or can the people inside start forming at the wristband queue at 8 p.m.? Turns out they cleared it at 7-ish, I think. 7 p.m. They cleared the convention hall completely, so everybody was outside either way. Or we knew that was what was going to happen. So we figured everybody's outside. We might as well get in line. If they disperse the line, it'll be a mad dash for the front door. If they don't disperse the line, then we're in line.
Yeah.
So that's what we ended up doing. And then, as we assumed would probably happen, they made that line the official line, and then the security moved us down, wrapped around the back of the building rather than going across the bridge where it was going.
Just tell them what happened with me in the line control.
So the line, when it was going down the bridge towards, was it the Hilton? I don't remember which hotel it was across the street. Instead of going down the bridge or across further into more area, it started to loop back up the bridge towards us. And Ryan wasn't having that, because if the line was doubling back on itself just on the other side of the same sidewalk, when the line goes to go, everyone's just going to mesh together. And the people that showed up last are going to be way ahead of everyone else.
Basically the end of the loop is then going to be the end of the line,
right,
so to speak.
So Ryan actually went over and started directing traffic, explaining to people, like, if you guys don't turn around now, you're the end of the line. Like, you need to fix this. And people actually moved. I was really surprised.
I have 6 years of San Diego Comic-Con line managing experience, so I had to get that through. So
yeah. So the second night I thought went better in terms of the actual camping out portion.
Yeah.
There was no DJ. The lightsaber fight club eventually moved itself after 2 hours of screaming at 2 a.m.
There's one big thing that happened.
Oh, are we talking about the Rian Johnson thing?
Nope.
Or...
I'm specifically talking negative, and that it pretty much turned into Hoth in that room that night. Like,
so yeah, the first night it was warm. Like, I remember waking up a little, like, sweating the first night. Mm-hmm. Second night, it was freezing.
I had, jeans on, my hoodie. I had 2 blankets. I was cuddling with my girlfriend Maggie, and I was still, like, just shivering constantly.
I had jeans, socks, and, like, my coat was my blanket. Like, it's not even a coat, it's a jacket as my blanket. And, like, I was so cold. And it was really funny, like, all over Twitter and the Reddit and everything. It was like, want to buy Tauntaun. Please let me cut one open. Does anybody have any space heaters? It was just...
I didn't think I needed to dress this warmly for Orlando.
Seriously, so Orlando, Florida, I thought about not even bringing a jacket at all, because, what am I going to use it for? Turns out jackets make good pillows and also makeshift blankets when the room is freezing overnight.
So, but yeah. Why don't you go and talk about...
So the Rian Johnson thing was both really good and kind of bad for some people. Mm-hmm. He came down as the director of Episode 8, which is really cool. It's kind of a thing that JJ started 2 years ago in Anaheim. He came down, but instead of bringing pizza, he brought a Sharpie and was signing people's badges and signing people's whatever they wanted, really. Yeah. It was really cool of him. He stayed down there for like 5 hours or something, which was just
a long time.
Insane, considering he had panels the next day. So that was really cool on him. The problem is that his handlers / bodyguards didn't do any traffic control. And so a fan actually stepped forward and started directing the line herself when they dubbed her like Space Panda or something, because she had like a Space Panda hat or something like that.
People were like, to get to him, like trampling over people's stuff.
People were mad dashing because he was trying to move through the line at first, like the line of us.
Yeah.
And like meeting everybody as he went through. That turned out not to be possible because everyone just dashed towards him at the beginning, and there were things online about people getting like tablets broken, cameras crushed, people getting stepped on while they were sleeping, like all kinds of really bad stuff. So I mean, it was really great, but it once again showed that there should have been staff there to help direct this, and there wasn't. And it was frustrating.
It kind of just goes to show, or I'm not saying go to show, it was kind of a preemptive to just the general. I'm going to be very general and broad here, so please don't say I'm including everybody, but there were a lot of scummy people.
Yes.
Just at the con in general. Line cutters and people who trampling other people's stuff, we saw so much of it. I mentioned that we got to be about 200th in line when we first got in line around 4 o'clock in the afternoon that previous day. But by the time we just got into the wristband line, like 3 hours later, we were 700th in line.
Yeah.
Don't know exactly how it happened, if people just illegitimately cut us, or if people were camping the line themselves and then brought their 10 friends in from the con. Don't know how it happened, but either way, we went from 200th in line to 700th in line, which was extremely frustrating.
And I saw Nick kind of nodding along. What was some of the stuff you saw?
The main thing I saw was that night for the episode 8 panel, and we got cut by the one guy, and I'm sure there was more of that. And you guys said you even saw the same guy like the next day.
Oh yeah, the security line guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw him the next day.
So
he just kind of cut right in front of us and was like, "I'm looking for my friends," and just stood in front of us, like looking around for a few minutes, and then just kind of like stayed standing there.
Like, dude.
I stopped looking. I was like, "Come on!" I'm like, at least come up with a good excuse.
So it's like there's no enforcement to prevent that, and it's unfair for a lot of different people, because there's a lot of people who they're not there. They're trying to legitimately get access to do this stuff. And you just have people who are just ruining that, and there's no one really around to just say no, unless you want someone to like get out of line, find like security or whoever just to come and go through all that mess. And then it's like,
to me, what should have happened was, because you had people that showed up early, they were in line early enough to get a wristband, they camped out all night. And then when the wristbands were passed out at 6 a.m., they had to go to a streaming stage because they didn't get in.
Yep.
Because literally hundreds of people were cutting in line in front of everyone else. I mean, we were bumped back 500 people.
Yeah. Just
ourselves. And like if you're at the end of the line, I mean, you have no prayer. I don't know if they should have introduced like some sort of like stamping procedure. Like if you're in at the very beginning, you get a stamp on your hand, and so then, or like, why not just give the wristbands right away and then form the wristband line right there at 8 p.m.? Because that way, I mean, I like that people could come and go and get food and go to the bathroom and all that stuff. Like, I don't want to be like Anaheim where you couldn't really leave as easily. But at the same time, like, that's what allowed, like, there was no enforcement whatsoever. That's what allowed all the cutting and the line saving and everything else. But I think we've pretty much beat this topic to death. Let's go on to the really, really happy news.
Yeah, so the episode 8 panel the next day was fantastic.
Amazing.
They brought all the main cast out on the stage. They brought out the new character, Rose. Yep, was her name. And then, of course, ended with the trailer. So I thought the trailer was phenomenal. I didn't have the same emotional reaction as some of the stuff they showed in the 40th anniversary, nor the same emotional reaction I had the 2 years ago at Anaheim when they showed the Episode 7 trailer, but that's to be understandable. That was kind of really the first Star Wars footage, besides the tiny teaser we had for Episode 7 at that point. The first Star Wars footage we'd seen in, 10 years at that point. So, but nevertheless, it was a great trailer. Showed us a lot of good things. We hear Mark Hamill speak for the first time as Luke Skywalker in, 35-ish years or so. And then there's that big bomb dropped at the end of the trailer. It's time for the Jedi to end. I like to go back to my previous theory I said on the podcast a few weeks ago or a few months ago, saying that I still believe hardcore that Luke is with Rey going to create a new light side / neutral, basically dogma, religion, order. Yeah, exactly. And it's just not going to be called Jedi anymore, and that's what the title Last Jedi means.
Yep.
And it doesn't really matter if it's single or plural, because they're kind of one and the same in this case. Since
I don't think Luke is naive enough to think that just because he disbands the Jedi, that people like the Sith or the Knights of Ren, which is the case now, or however Snoke identifies himself, are just going to go away. People like the Jedi are needed. I think Ryan hits the nail on the head that it's a lot of the weaknesses of the Jedi Order and the corruptness of the Jedi Order that we saw in the prequels and the Clone Wars is what needs to go. We need an order that is able to embrace emotion and commitment and family and things like that, while also being the guardians of truth and peace and all that stuff.
And no one knows that more firsthand than Luke. Anakin was taught to cast away emotion and attachment to family, but it was the one thing that brought Anakin Skywalker back was a love and emotional attachment to his son Luke, and that is what ultimately destroyed the Sith and brought quote unquote balance to the galaxy at the end of Return of the Jedi.
And he may or may not know this, but the refusal of the Jedi to allow that attachment is what drove him to the dark side to begin with. Like the fear of losing his wife, the fear of losing his unborn children, the inability to even admit that he was in a relationship.
Yep.
All of that stuff is one of the many weaknesses of the old Jedi Order that I think needs to go away.
And so we have no idea what Luke did with his original academy, except what Han says. He basically started a new generation of Jedi. Is that what Han says on the Millennium Falcon Episode 7? Something
akin to that. Yeah.
And so, if it's anything close to what the Jedi had in the prequel trilogy, it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work because it created whatever happened to Ben Solo and caused the Academy to fail and burn to the ground, as we've now seen again in this trailer. That is going to be readdressed once again.
Yeah, and I think there's something really interesting about where Luke is right now, and that book that they show in the new teaser, because we know from Episode 7 that he is at the first Jedi Temple, or what we know is one of the first Jedi Temples. And that book that is shown is likely to be some of the original writings of the original Jedi, or possibly even the orders that formed the original Jedi. And so I'm hoping that we'll get some kind of maybe like Order of the Wills, or
that's what I think it is,
something like that, where an order that existed before the Jedi, or even like the Jedi that existed before as they were in the prequels, that were different in their approach to the Force and their approach to their service to other people. What do you think, Nick?
I thought the trailer, it was really well made. I don't know how much I can go into Luke, but I'd really like to see a lot more just characterization with Kylo Ren, Rey, and Finn. Because, they have to rely on this new cast to tell the next, whoever knows how many Star Wars stories for the future. And The Last Jedi could be just a way to kind of wrap up this past generation, because it's like, I feel like you just kind of need to move on. So I'm excited to see what new stories that they have in store.
Did you guys notice that Kylo Ren's eyes were red?
Well, in the trailer they were yellow.
Or yellowish, yeah. That.
Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't in the trailer. It was in that they showed a lot of stills up on the screen while they were talking during the panel, and one of them was it was a shot of Phasma and Kylo, and Kylo's eyes were yellow, like the Emperor's, and that was.
Or like Anakin's / Darth Vader's when he's
in
almost
episode 3. Yeah, that was intense.
So he's got full dark side.
Yeah.
Killing Han had the effect that he wanted.
Yeah, I think we knew that going into it. Plus, we know that he's also undergoing training of his own with Snoke. At least that's what Snoke had in mind at the end of episode 7.
Yep.
Kind of piggybacking off what Nick said about the next generation, we know, obviously, spoilers, Han is dead. And we've had it revealed by the CEO of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, that Leia's character will not be in episode 9.
Yep.
Or at least not on screen. They could off-screen her and like have her giving orders, so that she's not necessarily dying in episode 8, but her story with Carrie Fisher as the actress will be done in episode 8. So the only person that could still even be around from the previous generation would be Luke, that they've introduced anyway. Who knows what happened to Lando? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to finding out what the heck is Finn's story going to be. He has the most open book of any of the characters right now, so that is really interesting stuff. And so I'm really excited to see what they do with him. And I want to know how Poe is interacting with the other two.
Yeah,
because he's the most separate from Rey, especially, and now from Finn, because who knows what Finn is doing. I'd like to see the two of them team up with Rose while Rey is getting trained and have some kind of adventure together. I think that'd be great.
Kind of like with Han, Leia, and
all them.
Just like Luke was doing his thing, and
just like like the Cloud City story and the asteroid field story of episode 5.
I really think Finn is gonna be completing his journey that he started in episode 7. That being, who am I? Do I stand with the Resistance? I'm not a stormtrooper anymore. He really has no sense of what life has to offer him. Obviously he has friends in the Resistance, but does he truly want to be a fighter in the Resistance? He joined the Resistance and quote unquote used the Resistance to rescue Rey, since that was kind of not a priority of theirs at all. He kind of rebelled in that matter. Just be like, no, I'm just here to get Rey. And Han's like, what? People are counting on us. And so I don't think as of the beginning of episode 8 he's fully with the Resistance. So he's gonna have to figure out, is that something he's really gonna want to do, or is he gonna go out and join the red droid that he met in Maz's place and be a space cowboy? Who's a space cowboy? Me. That's a Mass Effect quote.
Yeah, some of the stills that we've seen for Finn are interesting. Aside from in the trailer, they show him like in the hospital bed thing. But we know that he's out and about. We've seen stills of him in the Resistance space. We've seen stills of him wearing a First Order officer's uniform in the same room as Captain Phasma. So that's super interesting. I have no idea what that's going to be about. Is he undercover? Is he thinking about rejoining? Like, who knows what was going on there? But that's super interesting stuff.
Maybe Phasma gives him an offer I can't refuse.
And poor Poe and BB-8, all they've got so far is running towards an exploding X-wing again. It seems
just can't catch a break.
It's like the guy needs to ease up on the X-wings. The Resistance can't afford that many.
He's the best pilot in the universe, so they just have to stop him from getting in his X-wing.
Right.
He's helpless.
Because once he takes off, they can't stop him. Speaking of BB-8, he's my favorite part of the trailer. I don't know why, but like that scene of him and Poe running down the hallway, like BB-8 just like booking it down there. I'm in love with that droid. I want they could do a whole movie of BB-8 and I would be stoked. So anyway,
it's a very good trailer. Anything else anyone wants to say about the trailer?
It's pretty good.
Cool. The next thing that we saw that day, we won't spend too much time on it, but it was Mark Hamill's personal tribute to Casey Hudson, director of Mass Effect.
I enjoyed Mass Effect when it was.
But no, of course, Carrie Fisher, and it was a really wonderful panel, if I'm being honest, and it was obviously a very, very emotional time during it. And Mark Hamill even kind of admitted that it was kind of his own personal therapy session that he gave himself, because he just felt he needed to talk with the fans about it. And so he shared just many personal stories between him and Carrie, and kind of what everybody felt and thought about Carrie around the time of A New Hope. And, at some points he pulled out some personal words that he'd written down, and he started just choking up on stage while reading it, which in turn, of course, choked up every single person who was watching or listening to that. So I highly recommend you check out that panel, and all these panels. They're all on YouTube. They're really good watches. So
I've started going back and watching some of the ones, because another rule this year that they started in London is you can get two main stage panel wristbands a day. So if you go to the main opening one, you get one other one. So there was other panels throughout the day, like Anthony Daniels, Ian McDermott, I'm blanking on Darth Maul's name.
Ray Park.
There's so many that I'm going back and watching. This is one of them that I've watched some of already, and it's very touching, and you can tell that they were basically like brother and sister. They loved each other so much, and it's just really, really good.
He also talks about how they kind of sort of fell away, a little bit after Return of the Jedi, because, even though you're friends, your careers go off in different directions, and you continually meet and have lunch and things like that, but then slowly that starts to slow down. Right. And he mentioned that he was very sad that it kind of had gotten to that point, but he also mentioned how happy he was the fact that, the new trilogy was happening. He was able to basically reconnect with some of his best friends ever, again, only to have her, pulled away before her time, which was very unfortunate. But so I definitely recommend checking that out once you're done with our podcast, of course. So that pretty much did it for Friday. There was no camping out the next night. They didn't allow it. Thankfully, we got to go home and shower because we hadn't
sleep
and get some semi-good sleep. We hadn't showered in like 36 hours at that point. We'd just been in that convention center for so long. We were probably getting pretty ripe. I had pretty much covered my entire body with 3 layers of deodorant at that point.
Gross.
I know, right? So we went home, showered, but of course the doors opened at 6 a.m. to start lining up to get your wristbands again, even though there's no.
Well, they're supposed to open at 5, but they didn't open until like 5:40.
Yeah,
and they started giving it wristbands at 6 before most people were even through security.
So we woke up at like 3 and
3. I didn't go to sleep that night, but yeah, we got there at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Stayed in line in the street for an hour and a half.
Were you watching Gilmore Girls?
The night before?
The night you didn't sleep?
There was Gilmore Girls involved. I was watching the new Amazing Race from this last week. Friday, when you went to the Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher panel, I went back to where we were staying and slept for like 6 hours.
So you got some good
sleep. So I got some good sleep. And then, so that night, we stayed up just chatting and having fun and doing some social game stuff where we were staying until like 1 o'clock. And so like I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, got like 2 hours left. If I fall asleep, I'm just going to be really tired. So I drank a cherry Coke and watched a couple of episodes of TV. And then I was like, well, time to go.
Yep, I woke up and was like, hey, you're up already. He's like, nope. Never went to sleep.
I'm still up.
So we got there, and the line was outside still. Like I said, they didn't open until like 5:40 or so. But we were out on the street. Like the line had gone so far, and so we were kind of worried. Like, I wonder if we're even gonna get in. We were going for the Rebels season 4 panel that day.
Was amazing.
Yep. But luckily, we kind of discovered through chatting with other people and through the Reddit posts and Twitter that everybody in line was so diverse in what they were going for. So people were going for exclusives on the floor. People were going for other panels. Just so.
Yeah, a lot of the people in line that day were split up from very different goals. So we actually got really, really early in line for the wristbands for the Star Wars Rebels panel and got really, really good seats. I was really happy with the seats we got. And then we also got our Battlefront 2 panel wristband. I had almost, just jumping in straight into the Rebels panel, because everything else is not really that exciting. We learned from Dave Filoni that this will be the final season of Rebels, so Rebels season 4 will be the last one.
Are you more sad or more looking to the future to see what we're going to get next?
It depends on what they do with it, because, I just barely caught up with Rebels, and so I'm sad that I'm only going to have one season that I'm current with it. And just listening to that cast talk about how close they are and how much they love the show, and just listening to Freddie Prinze Jr. just like, give this heartfelt speech about like, the themes of his character and what it means, and like what it means for Star Wars in general, and like, what it means to be a Jedi and all these things. And I was like, holy crap, this guy really cares about his character, and like you can tell they're all super invested. And so I would love to see them all go on to another project somehow in the same universe, but I'm kind of terrified as to what's going to happen with all of them in the story. But I don't know how much longer they could go, given where we are in the story right now. So I'm happy that we may get a new series that's set post Return of the Jedi, possibly.
That's what I'm hoping for too.
What do you think, Nick?
I don't know that much about Rebels. When does it take place?
Before Episode 4. It starts off 5 years before A New Hope, and it's progressed, and we're now like a year and a half before A New Hope now.
Right. So when Rebels finishes, it'll be about a year or so before A New Hope. 6 to 9 months before Rogue One stuff.
So it kind of starts off with this one small band of rebels, the main cast members, but then it's kind of grown into a bigger story, and as of this latest season is showing the early roots of the Rebel Alliance that we know and love from the movies. So.
Yeah. Some of the things that were teased in the trailer was all the rebels on Yavin 4. That's pretty much it in terms of
Darth Maul's back again. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, wait a minute.
He came back to life again, but no.
Was I sleeping during that part?
But no, of course Thrawn is back and up to no good. Solemnly swear.
But if you were gonna, Nick, if you could pick what the next animated, like assuming there's gonna be another animated show after this, what, like for Star Wars, what would you want it to be about? Put you on the spot.
Well, they've already done one that was during the old new prequels.
Yeah.
Right, between episodes 2 and 3, yeah.
They did one Rebels, that's kind of
around in the time period of the original.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, it seems like the bounty hunters don't ever get enough love, so maybe some focus on some Boba Fett lore or something, or just going into just that realm. I think that would be interesting. If not that, then just maybe like a little bit more with the current the current timeline, with like during post Force Awakens. Maybe fill in the gap. Give, I don't know, like Finn's bogus adventures or something. Just shine some more light on.
Dude, this First Order is bogus, yo.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing about the current canon is we have a ton of stuff. Obviously, I mean, between episodes 1 and 6, we have a lot between episodes 2 and 3. Between the books and the comics and now Rebels, we have a lot between episodes 3 and 4, and also Rogue One. And then some of the original books that we got, like Heir to the Jedi and things like that. So we have a lot of stuff that is between 4 and 5. After episode 5, there's a pretty big jump. We have the Aftermath trilogy and Bloodlines, and then some of the comics, like Shattered Empire. But there is a ton of open space between, pun intended, between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, and between Force Awakens and, well, there really is no gap between Force Awakens and Last Jedi because it starts in the same scene. But that whole area is just, there's so much storytelling to be done about what's going to happen. And that segues us into the Battlefront 2 panel.
But first, before we go to the Battlefront 2 panel, sorry, I ruined your segue. I can't have anyone dethrone the segue king from last week.
Ryan must be king of segues.
Yep. But they actually premiered the first episode of Rebels
that's right.
to us as well, which is amazing. Like, I've never gotten an early peek at a season premiere or anything like that before. It's
We're not going to spoil it, are we?
It's no.
Okay, good.
It doesn't come out until the fall, but we got to see the whole episode, which unfortunately it's going to be an hour-long premiere, and so we only got the first half of it or so, which kind of ends on a cliffhanger, a pretty big one at that.
Yeah.
And so it was just really cool. I really liked it. But one thing that we both kind of mentioned is that we don't know if it was done because like the timing was off, and sometimes a scene would lag on for a couple seconds after like the dialogue had ended.
There was a lot of scenes where I thought there should be music where there wasn't.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be. I'm obviously we're both going to watch it in the fall, so we can compare it to what we saw here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good stuff. Chopper, of course, is incredible. Mm-hmm. Everything he did got a huge laugh from the crowd. We only have a few minutes left. Actually, we just went over our 45-minute time limit.
Let's just kind of wrap up on Battlefront.
So Battlefront 2 looks really, really exciting. They seem to be addressing all of the core concerns of the fans' critiques from the first Battlefront game, which is more eras, better heroes, better multiplayer,
space battles,
free DLC, no season pass, clones.
Clones.
Lots of people wanted clones. There was a lot of yelling about that during the panel. I think we can go into the atmosphere of the panel maybe next week.
We will. We definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah. And then the coolest part of it is that there's a single player campaign that tells the story of the heroes of the Empire in this elite squadron called Inferno Squad, and it's post Return of the Jedi, connecting into the Force Awakens timeline, and it is hand in hand with the story group at Lucasfilm, which means it's canon and will have new information in it that no one else will know. Mm-hmm. So you'll be able to get unique Star Wars stories that no one else has heard before from this game, and comes out in November. I'm stoked. There's a pre-novel that's coming out, like a prequel novel for it, that comes out in September, I believe.
I think so.
Called Inferno Squad.
And just the characters and atmosphere just seem super interesting to me. And
so if you haven't seen the trailer, you should go look it up and watch it.
And it connects back to Palpatine's line. It kind of retcons I've sent a legion of my best troops down to the Endor moon.
They never even talked about that.
Maybe we kind of assumed it was the stormtroopers, but then they all got beat by Ewoks with rocks and sticks.
Right.
So, but now, they might kind of retcon that semi-plot hole into now the squad you're playing as, Inferno Squad, is the Emperor's elite that he sends down.
Sounds right.
And they just never
seems to fit.
And they just never made it to the Han and them at the back door.
I'm wondering if they're trying to imply that the battle on Endor was bigger than we saw in the movie, that there was multiple fronts. Because this squad shows up and starts kicking trash on all the rebels that they're seeing, but then they still lose. And so...
We'll see. So, just to wrap up, Sunday we didn't really see much. We streamed the Mark Hamill panel and the closing ceremonies panel. Mark Hamill's panel was fine, not quite as good as the Carrie Fisher tribute, and the closing ceremonies was kind of
awful.
Yeah.
It was boring. I'm sorry.
It was just like, this is what happened, and we were there for most of it. Thank you for that.
Here's all the people that were on the stages hosting shows and what they liked most about Celebration. And The tribute video was great.
I love the highlight reel.
The highlight video is always great at the end of Celebration. So
I'll have to see if it's on YouTube now. It wasn't a few hours afterwards.
I have to agree with the tribute video because, the biggest thing about Celebration is just it's the fans, because you guys seemed more involved with all the panels, and it didn't seem like no one was really interested in Star Wars arts and crafts or how to talk like Darth Vader or anything like that. It's just...
Well, you put your mouth over your hand over your mouth like this, and you talk really deep, and then you got Darth Vader.
I feel like the biggest drive is just seeing the people there, people who have their bodies with nothing but tattoos of Star Wars characters or references.
Very enthusiastically show us his Star Wars tattoos at a bar that night.
Oh yeah, that guy too. And just going to surrounding areas around the convention and just seeing how many fans there are. I think that's just it's really awesome to see. And
yeah, I have to say one of my favorite parts was Sunday. I finally got a chance and had the energy to walk around the convention floor. And just meander. I had no goal to see anything super specific. I had no panels to wait in line for. I finally just got to walk around and just enjoy the atmosphere of all of these thousands of people all gathered together to share art and costumes and cosplay and figures and games and everything about Star Wars. And it was I mean, it always feels great, but it was a testament again to me why I like it so much. So
I love Star Wars.
I love Star Wars.
So that's our experience with Star Wars Celebration Orlando 2017, and both Trent and I have decided we're already going back in 2019, wherever it may be. Got to be there for that Episode 9 panel. So
it's probably going to be in Orlando.
Probably.
Because Star Wars Disney is the whole theme attraction is launching that year. So
all right. Well, thanks for listening to us ramble on about Star Wars Celebration for about 50 minutes here. Be sure to reach out to us through all the normal methods: email, briefnerdy@gmail.com,
social media,
Twitter, everything like that. So hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Later.